Ben Bius is a candidate for the Republican nomination for U.S. Rep. District 10, joins us today. Thanks for being with us.
Sure, my pleasure.
Tell us why you decided this is the race you wanted to be in now.
Well, I considered it. When Michael McCall announced his retirement, it was on a Sunday afternoon. And later that day, I started getting phone calls from political consultants asking, "Hey, Ben, are you going to run for Congress?" And I'm going, "Do what?" And so I spoke with Pete Sessions about it. And he said, "You come from the largest population area of this new district. And if you're interested in it, you'd have a good chance of winning it." So I thought about it for a month or so, and then we got together and discussed it, talked with my wife, we prayed about it. And I believe I can represent this district very well, and I believe it's my duty to attempt to serve. I believe I have a servant's heart, and I can get the job done. I think a businessman who knows how to get things done and has worked here in the Brazos Valley and in Deep East Texas his entire life can serve this district because he knows the people. So I felt like it was my God-given duty to attempt to serve.
Give us some give us some background as far as your work within the legislative process, if you will.
Well, I've been involved in politics for quite a long time, going back to the early '90s. The I've always been involved. I've always worked. I was a major part of building the Republican Party and the majority here in Texas for some time. And I can tell you this about the legislative process. The legislative process is pretty slow, and it could frustrate a business person. You can watch telephone poles rot faster than some things get done. For example, in 1998 and 2000, I ran and I was the Republican nominee for state representative over here in Deep East Texas. We had never had a state representative, but my campaign platform was secure the border and have a death penalty for the narco terrorist. Now, look, 26 years later, we finally get a president that does the job. To me, that's very exciting. That's another reason why I'm running, is because I believe we can get things done to help make America better, and particularly this district.
With an aging population in parts of the district, how would you protect Medicare and Social Security for current beneficiaries while making them sustainable long term? And what kind of reforms would you pursue to lower health care costs?
Okay, well, I believe that we must eliminate the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. It's a threat to our rural healthcare system. And I believe that we can, you perhaps remember that Obamacare became law after a court challenge in the Supreme Court by one vote over the question, was it a tax or was it an insurance policy? Well, it's an insurance policy. Okay. And I believe we can rehear that now that we have a different Supreme Court and perhaps eliminate Obamacare. On Medicare and Social Security, I believe that we need to make Social Security a personal account as well as Medicare. And we should go back to the health savings account approach, where it's your money, you earned it, you paid for it, it ought to be in your name, and not allow the government to use it to borrow or turn into a slush fund. And so we have to save this, and we have to. Our nation's debt level is so high that we will become a too high debt ratio to be sustainable. So we do have to do something, and we can be creative. So without destroying it I get Social Security and I get Medicare. It's a good thing when you're over 65.
Many Republican voters in the district prioritize school choice, parental rights. Would you support the efforts to defund or significantly reform the Department of Education?
My plan, and it's printed in my first plan and goal, and I believe I can get this done during my first term because I like to get things done. I want to defund the Department of Education and return that money directly to the counties. And the counties could then have the option of reducing property taxes or funding and assisting in vocational and technical training, because it's apparent that we must train the next generation, get their head out of a computer for those that are going to college, teach them how to work with their head and their hands and make them proud to work again, restore the work ethic. And then they can earn the American dream. I believe it's vital to the future of this nation that this next generation have the ability to earn the American dream. And I believe that we have failed them. And I hope to change that in my first term.
Many candidates emphasize alignment with President Trump's America First policies. Which of his key priorities do you most strongly support, and how would you advance them in Congress?
First thing, I want to make one thing clear. I'm going to represent this district, the state of Texas, in Washington, D.C., not the other way around. I do agree with most of the president's, and I believe all of it, foreign policy. I strongly support his efforts to, in the Western Hemisphere, to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. I believe that that is essential and is good for our security and is the best thing we can do to defend against the rise of China.
Is there anything we haven't covered today that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I have two other points that are vitally important. One is water. And my plan is this: 70% of the water passing through Texas passes through this district on the surface, from the Colorado to the Neches. This is a huge district. I was in downtown Austin yesterday, and it isn't anything like the Indian Reservation in Polk County. But the water here, if you'll go look at Lake Livingston as an example, from the causeway north to Riverside is almost completely silted in, and the capacity of that lake and the drainage and the flooding is a serious problem. Pete Sessions procured $30 million to help rebuild the Lake Livingston Dam that almost washed away. It would have been a catastrophic loss. So I believe that we can restore our lakes and rivers and increase the capacity of our water and the quality of our water and fight flooding across this entire district. The last thing is the Californication of Texas. This is a very serious problem with the data centers and with artificial, not unintelligence, intelligence. There's a group that's a big issue in this race, went to Washington, D.C., and put in the One Big Beautiful Bill a 10-year moratorium on states' rights to regulate artificial intelligence. In the Texas legislature, they passed Senate Bill 6, Senate Bill 9 in the 89th session that protected our grid and forced high volume users to pay for their cost of transmission and generation. Also, they passed common sense regulation of the dangers of artificial intelligence. And 25 of Texas's senators have asked the president, do not allow our 10th Amendment right to be defeated. And I support those 25 senators. And I find it amazing that anybody who calls himself a conservative would go and try to preempt Texas rights to govern Texas. And so that's a big issue in this race. And I won't stand for the Californication of Texas. That's why one of the major reasons I'm in this race. So that's the three things that I'd like to see happen.
Do you have a website?
Yes, www.ben4congress.com. That's the numeral 4, Ben 4 Congress.
There you are. Ben Bius, he is a candidate for the Republican nomination for U.S. Representative District 10. Thanks for the time today.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Scott. Bye-bye.